Okay. So thanks everyone for coming along. Thanks to Mikayla, and Julia for agreeing to do the interview. It's really cool for us to get a bit of an insight into how the competitions went at JWOC. I think a lot of us were watching, but it's always good to get the inside knowledge. So we might start just by asking a couple of questions, and then we might get you to go through a couple of the races. So firstly, you can answer in any order, but I was just interested to know how, like, to start with, the first thing that comes into your mind in regards to JWOC. How did you, like, what was the biggest takeaway from JWOC for the three of you?
Maybe I'll go. So obviously JWOC wasn't what we thought it would be, with forest events being cancelled. And I think maybe what I took away is something that Warren said. He said that we kind of put WOC and JWOC on a pedestal, and it's like everyone's like, oh my God, you made JWOC, oh my God, you made WOC. Like, obviously it's a great thing to do, but there are other like events that we're going to in Europe that will be like just as fun, just as amazing. So like, while we missed out on all the forest events in JWOC, like, I'm fortunate enough to be going to O-Ringen and going to World Unis and going to EOC. So like, while JWOC is an amazing achievement, all of the other events in Europe that you can go to without making a team, like O-Ringen and stuff like that, is also just as awesome and like just as an experience as well. So I think that's really good as well for other people who didn't quite make teams. They can still come over and get an awesome experience orienteering wise and like socially as well.
Mm-hmm. Definitely. Yeah, no, it's cool. I think that's a good way of looking at it. Yeah, obviously quite tough for you guys, but yeah, there's lots of opportunities coming up. What about you, Mikaela, whoever wants to go next?
Yeah, I think that going into JWOC, it was like really scary. I think I was like, right, this is it. This is my last year. Like, I've missed out on a fair bit. We've got to like go hard. And then we kind of got there, and it was a bit disappointing, but I think that they put together a really cool program for us, and they made the most of it. And at the end of the day, I wouldn't have wanted to be out in the heat anyway, because it was so hot. But JWOC in itself, the people, the atmosphere, it was all there, and we had so much fun. Yeah.
Cool. So it was your last year, Mikaela, wasn't it? This year, is that right?
Yeah. So mine, Julius, I think there were 7 of us with our last year.
Oh, really? Wow. Okay.
So it was pretty. There were a lot of 20-year-olds in the team that were a bit sad.
Yeah.
With the night we found out, it was a bit chaotic. We found out, and because one of the New Zealanders came into the room where we were sitting in, and he was like, "Oh, it might be cancelled because of the forest fires." And we were like, "Oh, you're pulling out, like you're joking." And we like adamantly refused, and he kept trying to tell us, and we just adamantly refused. So he just gave up at the end of the time. He was like, "Oh, whatever, they're not going to believe us." And then we saw the official notice.
Yeah.
And all hell broke loose. So we were staying in a hotel with the Brits, the Kiwis, Germany, Ireland, and Hong Kong, and a lot of people all went to the pool, and there was like probably 40 or 50 people in this pool, and it was just a lot of emotions going around. And I think having the team there to like bond and like being with each other was the thing that kind of got us like, oh, it's going to be okay. We'll deal with it.
Yeah. And I can imagine something like this happening probably means the team bonded more than they probably would have in a standard week. So I guess there's always that silver lining there, and I'm sure you guys it looks like you had a great week. So
yeah.
On that, just before we go to Mikaela, Mary had a question in terms of how you felt the organisation was, given that they threw everything together last minute. And did you think that it was as good as what it would have been if they'd been organising that way for months?
It was really good. I was so impressed that they like managed to pull it all together like that. for the sprint relay, they used the same arena as the sprint. So that was obviously all, and that arena was intended to be used for the long as well, because it was kind of like all near the same area. So there was this huge stage, and like and they did really well to kind of pull it all together. I think I expected less, but they did really, really well. They managed the screens, the tracking, that it felt like a really big race. Like it still felt like JWOC.
What do you reckon, Mickey G?
Yeah, it was really impressive. And yeah, they even changed the map slightly between the sprint and the sprint relay, which was 2 days later on the same map. So they're definitely on top of the game.
Yeah, no, I like seeing it from afar, and obviously we just see the production they give us. The production was as good. The courses I thought were probably better in the sprint relay than the sprint. Like I wasn't overly impressed by the sprint courses. They were good, but they weren't amazing. But I thought the sprint relay courses were really good. So it was quite impressive to watch from afar, and it sounds like it felt on the ground very professional still as well. Yeah, cool.
Yeah.
Mikaela, how about you? I guess this was your first JWOC, and you will still have some more JWOCs in the future. How did you feel after the week, and what were your main takeaways?
So I'm 18, so I have hopefully 2 more JWOCs after this one. As the other girls said, obviously I was quite disappointed about the forest races being cancelled, but I sort of more treated it as like it's not my last year, so I can have a real go at the sprint. And if anything, this will kind of help with experiencing the nerves aspect before I actually do forest races in the future. So for me, it was like kind of like a soft entry into JWOC, because I got to do the sprint, which is one of my favorite events, and then do one of the other events was unofficial. So all of this was really good for me to like experience JWOC without the pressure of doing, the biggest race, like some of the bigger races. So I think I could like turn it somewhat into a positive, which was really nice.
Yeah, cool. What did you feel like the main differences were between, say, competitions you previously done and being at JWOC your first time?
I would say like being tracked and potentially being videoed. I did kind of psych myself out before I began. I was quite like nervous about that. I was like, oh, everyone can see what I do. I haven't really had that experience at a major race before, but like as all the coaches tell you, you just got to run it like any other race. It's not that different. If you start enjoying it, like the atmosphere turns from like pressure to excitement, and I felt that was really good for me.
Yeah, cool. Cool. All right. Well, I think you somewhat covered some of the other questions I had as well in that, but let's just maybe talk about your performances and how you felt like you went. So before we get in particular races, did you have any general thoughts on your performances in any particular races?
Yeah, I don't think any of us did our best in the individual. I think that it was all kind of like new and scary. And I mean, I have been to JWOC before, but it was quite a long time ago, and I'm not really sure if I remember much of it. But I think that we definitely, Tash kept saying, if you run as good as you do in Australia, you'll do well. And it was kind of like, we went, oh yeah, we get it now, because I don't think any of us ran as best as we could in the individual. And then as we started to kind of warm up through the week, we had better and better runs with like the kind of more used to it we got, or maybe it was kind of a relay, so we were less like frazzled about it.
Yeah.
But yeah.
I think we all warmed up into them as we went. I think me definitely personally, as I went, I got better and better. And I think for the majority, as we went along, we did get better.
Yeah, cool. And what do you think, what was your best race? Maybe the three of you, what were you most happy about?
I think mine was definitely the urban relay, so the only unofficial event.
Yeah, mine was the sprint relay where it says where I mispunched. but I didn't miss punch. I went to what I promised. But yeah, I mispunched that one apparently, but it was like my best kind of race in general.
Yeah, for me, it was also the sprint relay. I went into it with not much pressure because I was in kind of the unofficial race. And I was first leg runner, so I could go out with people. I ended up running with about 4 people the whole time, which was like another good like training experience. And I felt like I had a pretty good run, so I enjoyed that one.
Yeah, nice. And it sounds like
Yeah.
like all 3 of you warmed up, and I was sort of thinking the same thing here. Mary's got a question in terms of what do you think could have helped you prepare to feel warm and ready before that first race rather than sort of warming up through the week?
I think because the sprints were so different here to anything we've ever experienced before, having like a couple of those on training maps were really good, but I think maybe having just previous kind of like experience in like, I don't know, the competition side of things, and then in those specific maps, like doing it with pressure, which we kind of did a little bit of.
We did like a simulation sprint with the Kiwis. And so like it was like the start blocks and you had to start time, and then you went out. And like Aston was running around filming people to try and, you know, stimulate that kind of thing. But it's a bit different when you know it's fake. You can't put that mental pressure.
Yeah.
So do you think potentially
I'm going to be a bit controversial and say that
you go first.
I reckon the first JWOC race is, I'm going to be a bit controversial and say that I think the first JWOC race is always going to be like that. You're always going to have nerves. I don't think there's like a best recipe for avoiding it, because I think that everybody realizes, wow, I'm on the world stage. This is when I really got to perform. And sometimes people like respond to that really well. But I think for some of us, it just made us like more nervous about the race.
So do you think it's about first JWOC or first race of being in Europe?
Probably
I think if you have like a bit of both.
Yeah. So it's always going to sort of feel like, particularly, I guess, first JWOC is the first time feeling that, and then for others that haven't been to JWOC, it's only once a year. So even if you're at JWOC the previous year, it's still been a long time since you've been in that situation. So Mary's popped something in that she's targeting Mikaela a little bit here, but this is good. It's good to sort of discuss it. Yeah, can you see her question there instead of me?
Yeah. Yeah, I think coming from WOC, it was kind of just like, oh wow, like everyone's like all of those like really, really good people, and I'm just kind of like separated myself from one of them. But like then when we got to JWOC, I was like, oh, they're all my age. They're all like 2 years younger than me. Whereas and I think it's always going to be scary. And I was so nervous for WOC as well. And I think it's just something that you like individually have to like learn how to handle yourself rather than kind of prepare for it in different ways. It's kind of like, oh, I've got to myself know how to prepare for a specific race. And I think I'm still learning how to like deal with it.
Yeah, and I think what Mary's sort of referring to now is sort of saying that maybe at WOC you felt like you didn't have the pressure because you weren't at the top, whereas when you were at JWOC you were competing against your peers, I guess, and you felt more pressure to perform.
Yeah, absolutely. It was more like, all right, this is my last shot. This is it. And then there was a really big hill. So.
Yeah. Okay. And one last before we get into the maps, what if you could go back in the last 6 months and do something differently to prepare? What would you do to prepare for this JWOC?
More hills.
Yeah, I was going to say that if I knew it was just the sprint, the hills at the end of the course really killed us.
Yeah. And Julia, anything different or also hills?
Yeah, maybe if it was just the sprint, I would kind of practice looking at the more intricate details on the map, because on the individual map there was one entrance to a control that everyone had been looking at on like the same area on the the Google Maps that we got, and we were like, oh, it's an entrance, and I'd heard that, and then in the individual I made a big mistake because I went in and I didn't properly stand and look at my map, and I was like, oh, that's an entrance, I can go, but it wasn't, it was uncrossable. So I lost quite a bit of times. And I think for some other people, just looking at the very intricate details, like there were a lot of like things that would catch you out because it's so small and it's not blocky like in Australia. It's not just big buildings, nice rows of blocks. It's very weirdly shaped buildings. So I think, yeah, being able to look at the intricate details very quickly, I guess I could have practiced that.
Yeah, so you mean more so being able to see it on the day rather than doing the prep? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, sorry. Yeah, what I was saying is like in the prep, everyone was looking at this section and there was a crossable gap. So when I immediately looked at it, I was like, oh, it's a crossable gap, when I didn't properly look at it.
Yeah, on the map. Yeah.
And stuff like that. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think that's probably something that I would like. I obviously haven't been in Europe yet, but that's something that I've taken away from this season, in terms of the way sprint racing is going, at least at the World Championship level, is that they're going to use areas that they can open and close things. So sometimes that over preparation and expecting it to be a certain way might not always work, and like you were saying, that you need to still be able to pick it up on the day.
Yeah, I think that caught a couple of people out, like thinking things on the map as the previous map when they had changed it.
It's a lot of controversy. A lot of controversy with a couple of runners being disqualified, and then they were like, oh, but it wasn't like that on the old map, and then they undisqualified.
They undisqualified them.
Yeah, like the
Why?
winner, second place of the men's 20s, of the boys. So there was like this kind of like ambiguous, and it wasn't kind of taped, this out of bounds area, and they ran straight through it. But it was actually olive green on the map, and it was very clearly olive green. It was a big source of controversy because they kind of argued it, and they were like, the Scandi countries, so they argued it with force. And so they ran through it, and it looked from the top like you could run through it like it would be yellow, but it was actually olive green, and it was very obviously olive green from the bottom. But yeah, they undisqualified them because they're like, it was like that on the old map.
Because of I guess the reason that they undisqualified them must have meant that it must have been that it wasn't taped.
Yeah, it wasn't taped or something like that.
Yeah.
Oh, it was olive green.
Interesting. All right. Well, maybe, I think that's what Ewan's saying here, that it was the organisers didn't tape it.
Yeah.
When they said they would.
Yeah.
Anyway, all right, let's have a chat about the actual races. So I've lost my mouse. Where is it? Oh, there it is. Let's have a look. Who was going to do the sprint? Was that you, Mikaela?
Me.
Yeah.
C.
Mikayla C. All right, let's share. This is the sprint map for those who haven't seen it. And let's get up. Oh, do you know what start number you were?
I was towards the end.
So I'm going to unpick all first. Oh, that didn't work. Oh, here it is. Before or after Julia?
After.
There we are, right at the end. Okay. Any particular part you would like to look at, or do you want to?
I suppose we can go like basically like the cool part, which is in the middle.
Yeah.
So yeah, it was like, so the whole ensemble, the whole crazy, it was a different type of thing to what it's like in Australia. So like I kind of knew what was going on because of because of like last time I went to JWOC, but with the whole quarantine and all of that, it was a big like crazy deal. So we were just doing a lot of thinking. But so I knew when I had got that first control, I didn't think it was going to be a long leg. But when I got to my mat, I was like, I looked at it and went, okay, all right, let's do it. Let's go. And I was really, really focused on looking at my mat. Oh my goodness. that was my boo-boo. And so yeah, I was like, and when I got the first control, I was like, yes, I was running. And I was like, I'm so glad that I like kind of got it with, and it might not have been the fastest way. I think the fastest way that a lot of people went was come across the top and down some bare down the like open area and down there to kind of get into one.
Sorry, can you guys see my mouse?
Yeah.
So
starting and then
through there?
No, coming further north, coming kind of almost past like 4, down that gap through 4, which is what like a lot.
Oh yeah, through that one. Yeah.
Which is what a lot of people did, but I was just, I think everyone was kind of like, get that first control, get it clean, get it good, and then you can think. And then I was like, oh, perfect, this is awesome, I'm doing well, my legs are fine, it's been all downhill, let's go. And then so I flew to 2, I was going really fast, and then I just missed that gap, I couldn't see it. And that's another case of I think doing a little bit more preparation beforehand, because a lot of the boys and a lot of other people were like, oh, do you remember looking at that gap online? I was like, no, I don't. And so I went in there, and then I couldn't see that gap on the way back either. And I was like, fine, I'll just run and do what I can to like get there. And it was after that I was like, oh no, my race. And I think it took a lot to just kind of keep going after that and keep making those decisions and keep orienteering after going, oh, I just lost all that time.
Yeah, for sure.
And a lot of like energy as well, just being like, oh no, yeah. But yeah, I think particularly for controls like this, using the barrier as like because the barrier is really obvious, using that as like almost a big landmark for like orienteering and for getting your direction was really helpful, because they were so big and so there. And so coming down from 4 to 5, seeing that barrier and going, oh yeah, cool.
So it was nearly more obvious than the buildings, like because it was different.
Yeah, it was different. And because
did you know what it was going to look like in terms of like, did they have that set up at the technical model and it was the same as what they?
We went to the model and I think they hadn't set it up yet. I think it was very hectic for them because they were under a lot of pressure to like make all the other maps. But there was, it wasn't quite set up all the way the first day, and the second day was a little bit set up. But it was obvious in the terrain.
Yeah, and it was in the bulletin. There was a photo.
Yeah. Okay.
So
cool.
And I found a lot of like kind of going through like familiar areas, like going past like places that I've already been, as like really like, oh, yes, I'm on the right way. So like going from 5 to 6, going all the way around, I probably should have come in through the yellow down by 11, but it was just areas that I'd already been to and I already knew, so it was kind of like familiar, and then I could run. And then this is where we started to go uphill a little bit more, and so getting a bit tired. And so once I was getting to here, I was like, I'm so confused. And then when I like popped out at the castle wall, I went, oh, but it was like one of those things where, because this big wall was like a huge castle wall, and it was very obvious to see and like relocate off. So that was like a little error, but it was easily fixable.
Yeah.
And so I was running with a Danish girl like at this point, and she went all the way around the bottom to 9 rather than crossing the bare rock, and I was like a lot faster because of able to cross the bare rock. And it was just things like that which were like, oh, yeah, little like affirmations like, okay, you're doing okay, you're doing okay. But this is definitely when the tired legs were starting to like sit in, going up and down that hill. But it was still pretty good. And there was a lot of people who went from 11 to 12 went down because it looked like you could possibly get through like in there, but it was just all like it was all big no-nos.
And that was open the next day, yeah?
Yeah, so that's actually what I was referring to
That's
before.
the one,
So,
yeah. That was quite tricky. I saw someone go through it the next day because I think I saw your mistake, Julia. And then the next day when I was watching, I saw someone go straight through it, and I was like, "What the hell? They can't go through there." And then they actually could.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. All right.
Yeah, so there's a lot of people kind of getting a bit confused in there, which was so true because I stopped and looked at my map and went,
It looks really tight and hard. Like the route choices maybe at times in this course don't look too tricky. Like most of them, like there's like a way through, but like I imagine like the actual execution of the route choices and making sure you turned at the right place and you were looking at the right buildings would have been really tricky.
Yeah, one of the biggest things that like we talked about all through training and stuff was picking the right intersection, picking the right way through and the right intersection.
Was there any particular way that you did that? Like what was the best way to pick the right intersection? The
best way was monuments and towers and water features, and they were so good at like if you had one of those in your intersection like 10 for the relay day, I used that one there. It was so handy to like pick the right one after seeing that. Yeah.
You mean this?
Yeah. It was really handy to just pick the right one. Otherwise you had to kind of like look at the shapes of the buildings and like check. But if you had one of those big monuments, it was like.
What about the trees?
The trees, yeah, I think it was something that we talked about using, and then I failed to really look at them. But they were
less obvious.
If you were paying attention, then they were really helpful.
Yeah. Okay.
I wasn't paying attention.
Cool.
Yeah.
And anything else about this course?
That was hell. That was my idea of not a fun day out. That was you see my trail slow to a
it was nice and hilly. What's you might be able to give us information. What was going on with this control? I don't know if any of you made this mistake, but I saw lots and lots and lots of people miss this control. What was going on with it?
Well, because where the track bends and the track goes straight, it was not obvious where that the track bended, so I think people just kept going straight. But there were like a couple of boys in front of me, so I was able to like see that. But if you didn't have those couple of boys in front of you and you were so tired from going up the hill, it would have been really hard.
So you're saying this bend wasn't very obvious here? Yeah, it just like looking at the control, I was like, it looks so easy. And we've got like it just looked there was something must have been wrong there for that many people, like not wrong, but something with the interpretation of the map I felt had to be wrong with the amount of people that were making mistakes on it. Doesn't look difficult from when I'm sitting at home looking at the computer, but obviously there was something going on there a bit weird.
I think that bend not being that obvious combined with a really tired brain was like a recipe for like just missing it.
Yeah, that's really interesting.
Yeah, and then the chiffon home, that was.
I think Mikaela's talking, but I can't hear her. You're just quiet, Mikaela.
Is that better?
Yeah, that's better. You're back.
Okay, yeah. Some people also thought this passable wall was a ride because it's kind of broken. So then just weren't having eyes up. Earlier runners also couldn't see the bend as clearly as later runners. And as Mickey said, everyone was really tired. So I think these just kind of all combined together.
Yeah. A horror control.
I think at the start and end made a big difference because I was one of the last starters. And from about where that blue water is on the below the track, if you go up onto the track, from about there, I could actually see the control.
Yeah.
Like I could
Okay.
open my eyes up and I saw 16 from about there.
Yeah.
People have been
because it
cutting
was
this corner or something.
Yeah.
People had gone through. So I think definitely being first starter and last starter makes a big difference.
Yeah.
In that,
yeah.
like,
Yeah, interesting. Cool. Does anyone have any other questions at all in terms of about the sprint individual? Mary's got, I don't know if it's a question or a comment, but it's talked a lot during WOC training about looking for what you can see running from a distance to use as a marker. Yeah, and I think that was probably pretty, just from
and also
watching.
looking at like opposite things is what we talked about at WOC. So if there's like a door, if there's like a gap, rather than looking for something that you can see on the other side as an indicator, rather than looking for the gaps and missing them.
Yeah, because you can see the other side, whereas you can't see the gap because you're running on that side. Yeah, no, that's really interesting, and obviously, yeah, maybe applicable for us doing. It's applicable in all sprint orienteering, but obviously very applicable in these two terrains.
Yeah. So Erica lost time there as well.
Yeah.
And a fair few.
And Erica was also an early runner. She was the first Australian to go off.
Yeah, I think I watched a lot of people make that mistake from lots of different countries. So I don't know if I reckon it was nearly the most common mistake I saw, but I haven't analysed it. Anyway, cool. All right. Well, thank you, Mikaela. Maybe we'll go on to second Mikaela in the sprint relay. So I'll just stop and reshare. I'm gonna share so we want sprint relay B relay. Cool, leg 1. All right. And Mikaela, do you want to see just you, or do you want to see some other teams as well?
I think we can just put me on, because I can tell you which people I was running with anyway.
Yeah, cool. Where are we?
I think I was 62, maybe.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Cool. So starting off in a mass start, I knew there'd probably be a split on the first control. So I was just pretty wary of that. And you could kind of see the two groups of people going off. So I just made sure to stick to my compass, like hit the top of the bare rock, and kind of think about, this is my only bush orienteering, so I don't want to make a big mistake here before this actual sprint course. And then even to 2, this was like a big route choice leg, but because I was in a pack with so many people, I didn't really make the decision. I just kind of went along with the flow, checked that it would get through eventually, and figured that it was better to like stay with people than to do my own route choice at this stage.
How did you think?
I haven't really run first.
Yeah. What did you think? Did you reflect on that afterwards? And did you think that was a good idea at that point in the course?
Yes, because the route choice, I think, probably was the best one from my split. It was a bit different from the other split, though.
Yeah.
It makes and I mean, I did have a look, and in my initial glance, it was like, oh yeah, this is fine. And I think it's probably better to be fine than to risk doing my own thing so early in the first leg.
Definitely. Yeah, I think that's a good tactic at that point in the leg, for sure, especially first leg.
Yeah. So this was all good. Going to 3 was where I first lost sight of kind of the first people, because I actually missed one of the really narrow stairways. So I go past 13, and then my plan is to come just straight down those stairs. But in real life, they were like quite narrow and I didn't see them. And I think what happened was I did like a big loop instead, because I wasn't brave enough to actually stop and look for it and like be convinced that I'm right, especially in a relay when I could see like other people. So that was where I kind of first lost some time because I didn't want to stop and really analyze it. I was just like, oh, like I can get around, I'll go around, even if it did cost me quite a bit of distance. So I think that was a good like JWOC learning for me, was it's okay to stop. But it's easier to say that than to do it in a course. And I don't think I did do it in a course. So, and then after 4, I was trying to like catch a couple of people in front. So I missed this little gap right about now that goes via 10. So again, a small mistake, not as big of a deal, but I just kind of wanted to keep running. And by now I could still see a couple of people. From now until the end, I was running with about 4 teams. So there was Netherlands, New Zealand, myself, and Austria. So that was really good to run with people for most of the way, and like have someone, 10 meters in front, leading you into controls and stuff like that, which was another advantage of being first runner. For 5, we had to come up across this bare rock, which was quite tough going if you have a look at all those contours. And I feel like if I had done maybe more hill training, that could be an area where I made time rather than just tried to avoid losing time. And then we've got a couple more tricky legs before we come back. But at this stage and overall, I was like reasonably happy with my position. I was obviously not with like the Swedish people at the very start, but I was with a group of other people. So when I came back, like my second leg run, I could go out at least with some people. So it was an all right position, I think.
Yeah, nice. Good. Cool.
Unfortunately, the New Zealand girl that I was running with had a different split than me on one of the later splits, and she did miss punch. So I also made sure to check my numbers because it was a relay, which cost me time, but I think for myself being not as confident in a relay was worth it in the end.
Yeah, it's possibly a good talking point. Do you always check numbers in a race or a relay, or what's your approach?
My default is to check, except if I'm like quite sure of it in sprints, but that is something that I'm working on changing, because I think that it does take like unnecessary time and brain power to check it. So in the future, like I want to check less and less in sprints unless I've just made a mistake or I'm not really sure where I am. But I think in relays, I'll probably keep checking for now.
Yeah.
Cool. Yeah.
No, it's always an interesting talk. There's no wrong or right for that, and it's interesting to see different people approaching it different ways. And I think what you've said there is a very sort of sensible way to approach it in terms of, I'm blanked out. There we go. There's the COVID coming in. I don't even know what I was talking about now. Might cut that bit. I was talking about control numbers. Sorry. Very sensible way of doing it. Being when you're unsure, checking. If you're 100% sure, then obviously it's less important, but some people would still say that you should do it then. So I think the way you've approached it sort of makes a lot of sense. All right. Anything else in the course, or any other particular things like later on? Should we keep playing it through?
We can zoom through it. It's pretty standard. I don't think I took the ideal route to 10, but again, I was with people, so I wasn't really that unhappy about it. I probably could have been more aggressive in circumstances like this. Like tried to get ahead of the other girls I was running with by taking a different route. And maybe like in future relays, that's something I'll do, especially now we're at the end of the like later half of the course. I could have taken some aggressive route choices to get ahead. Whereas at the moment, I was kind of content with staying with the people I was running with. So that's also something I can work on. Yeah,
definitely. Yeah, I think it was obviously like a really tricky course, and looks like you've done really well. And obviously that is your first sprint relay where you're running first, you said?
Yeah.
Yeah, cool. So good training for future years. Is it something you'd like to do again?
Yeah, I reckon. I quite enjoyed it.
You liked it? Yeah, cool. Awesome. All right. Does anyone have any other questions for Mikaela while we've got her here? Mary's posted a couple of things. I'm not sure if it's from the previous bit or from now. She was just talking about this.
I think one of them was related. Yeah, like stopping to check your map to look at like little like stairs behind walls and that sort of thing. For me, like I didn't want to stop, but she's right that it is quite different to Australia. You don't need to stop as much in Australia because like nothing's really hidden from your view as you're running into it. But it's a lot more tight and tricky in places like this. So you might need to like change the mindset a little bit.
Yeah. I think that's something that I've probably seen more this year. I don't know if anyone was watching the World Cup. The World Games coverage, but there was multiple times in that course where people like stopped still. Like Tim Robertson, when he won the sprint and on a major route choice, he stopped for like a good second. And I think we've had maybe that was a good reflection for me as well, being this sort of thing of must maintain flow is not always the most important part in certain races. So I think that's a good reflection, and obviously something that happened at WOC as well as was happening at JWOC. Oh yes, sorry. Mary's asking if the sprint. I don't know if you were saying you like sprint, but I don't know if you consider yourself a sprint orienteer or like a mainly sprinter. But is this something you'd like to sort of keep pursuing and doing sprints and aim for maybe sprint walk in the future?
Yeah, I think so. I think having more sprint races, the Knoll season this year, we did a lot of sprints and like the knockouts was super fun. I think it definitely has motivated me to like focus on sprints like every now and then, like in 2 years, for example, focus on sprints. And like what would be a really cool end goal, but even getting better at sprints in general, I think has been good. Also, a sprint relay has been added to the JWOC like program in I think all future JWOCs instead of the middle qualifier, or at least for next year. I'm not sure about all future.
Interesting.
It's going to be a sprint relay instead of a middle qual. Yeah. So JWOC is also reflecting like a bit more of an emphasis on sprints. So like yes, it is becoming more prominent, I would think. And sprint walk is like a really good end goal.
That's cool.
Jules,
yeah, they've been talking about that for a little while, bringing it in, and maybe this was the stimulus that was needed to finally secure it. So yeah, really interesting, and I think it was quite a successful discipline this year. So that's exciting. Cool. Any other questions for Mikaela from anyone? We can, if there's any that pop up, we can answer them at the end as well. Let's move on to Julia. I will stop this and reshare again because it's easier. And we're looking at leg 1, aren't we, Julia?
Yeah.
Cool. Alrighty. So where was this map to start with? Because I didn't ever actually sort of look. Was it in the same area? Like, does it parallel to the other one?
It wasn't really parallel, close, like
totally different area.
Yeah, it was a model map that everyone had allegedly run on, so it was fair, and it was like ones that they encouraged everyone to run on. So it was like so they thought it was
okay, because it was the most relevant.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, had you guys run on it?
Yeah, so this is the one we did the sprint simulation with the keys.
Cool.
Yeah.
All right. Do you want just you and a few other teams, you and all the teams?
I think that's Mickey.
So you versus 1v1.
Yeah. So I'm red. Mickey, C is purple. We actually
you want just you?
Oh no, Mickey can come along.
Okay.
We were actually quite close the whole way along, which was actually quite nice. Yeah, I was greeted around every corner with a little go Mikaela.
from Julia, which was very lovely and heartwarming. But even when I tried to go back, I was like, "Go, Julia!" I was a bit tired.
But from the start, it was really cool because all of the teams followed this tape around, and everybody went left, and we all just ran along this cobblestone. And there was so many of us, and it was actually quite awesome, quite surreal to have just like so many girls just running along this cobbled street.
Yeah.
And
it
pretty
would
much,
look so cool from a drone. It would look so cool.
And everyone,
everyone
coming across. And then this is where Mickey and I first split. But then we saw each other as we went back into the building. And it was quite hectic coming through here, touching that and turning around. There were so many girls. We honestly stuck together a lot of the time. Coming through there was still so many girls. And I think that was one of the things that was different for me. I don't think I've run a first leg before, let alone on such a, worldly stage. And so I think that being in the atmosphere was really cool for me, because normally, at least in the relay before, I was fourth leg, and on previous ones I think I've always been last, so I'm normally out there by myself. Occasionally see someone going the other direction, but never people going to the same controls as you. So having everyone kind of going the same direction minus a couple of like splitting, I think it was really cool, and it definitely pulled me along. I felt more confident going the way I wanted to go, and I guess there is also that negative, like maybe someone will pull you in the wrong direction. Or you just follow, and then when they turn really quickly, you don't know where you are. But I think definitely it was good for me. I felt like more confident, and I liked how everyone pulled me along, which was good.
Yeah, cool. Did you find that you were able to sort of manage the difference in terms of having never done it before? How did you feel like you managed it?
Yeah, I think I actually really enjoyed it. I think I did well, because I think I knew that I had to stay in contact with the map, and that if I was getting pulled along, I had to stop. But yeah, I think I did that quite well.
Yeah, cool. Nice.
Yeah.
Good. It looked like fun.
Yeah, it was lots of fun. Yeah, so coming around here, Mickey and I can always see the tail of Mickey, and coming around, there was lots of people, especially coming to number 7, getting onto this little boardwalk. There was not much space, and I think we saw a girl almost topple over the edge as we ran past.
It was a bit sketchy coming up there. Isn't that technically illegal? Like,
yeah, it is, but they had like a board.
Yeah, they had like a board.
Yeah, okay. Did they show it on your map that it was legal to do it? Because like, it's strange that they
did not even look, to be honest. Everyone was going in there with tapes.
You just went. Yeah.
Okay.
Interesting.
Yeah, and they told us the night before, like when Brett and Lauren came back from the meeting, they said that that's what.
There was a section.
Yeah. Okay. Interesting. Yeah. Cool. And I guess the one thing that was probably quite different to this sprint race that you wouldn't have maybe done in the past, it would have been quite long. Is that right? Was it the same courses for the
boys and girls?
Yeah,
same. And the boys started before us, so they were in less sun and less time, and then we started an hour later in the hotter sun, and obviously take longer.
And theirs was already a bit longer as well. I think, like, it was like the fastest times would have been around 16, I think, maybe, or maybe it was a little bit quicker.
Yeah.
So how long were you guys out for?
We were 22.
So quite a long time.
Yeah. So this is the section that both Mickey and I stuffed up.
Yeah.
So we just came in, and I guess we saw the opening. And I guess this is an example of where people pull you along. So Mickey went all the way in, and I kind of stopped as I got to the olive green, and I was really confused because I was like, it says it's paved, and we're like dropping down into bush. And as you can see, that's where I lose Mickey for a section there. Oh, yeah. because I come back out and then she's stuck behind everyone wanting to come through. But then I make a questionable route choice to so I didn't have F, I had E. I don't know what I was doing there. And then, yeah, she kind of caught me up there again. So I didn't get away from her. And then, yeah, heading to my number 12, I think with sprinting long legs, a lot of the time I see a route choice and I'm like, no, I've just got to be confident. I've made my route choice. I can't hesitate. And sometimes that pays off because there's no hesitation and I just go whether it's the best route choice or not. And other times it's not the best route choice, but I've committed and I go anyway when I should have turned around. So these ones, I guess, were kind of comparable, but I still think going above may have been better because I do a little ziggity zag there.
Yeah.
Yeah. So Julia's course had like an extra control. So she went to that one on the bare rock that you see and another one, whereas my course, I just had the H.
Yeah. Okay.
So, yeah. So
it's quite messy in there between us.
And you guys were here at the same time or Julia was a little bit ahead?
Yeah, Julia was a little bit ahead.
Yeah.
And as we got...
Yeah. And then you pretty much were at the control at the same time.
Yeah.
Okay. So take away from that in terms of like long route choices, like that strategy of taking, like, once you've chosen a route choice, committing to it, when do you think you won't use that in the future?
I think definitely on the trainings that we've done, I've gotten better at doing a double check. So looking, seeing the best route choice, not committing, having a double check and then going, no, it is the right choice, and then committing. So there's still a bit of hesitation, but it's a good hesitation. It's a checking hesitation. I feel like what I used to do was I'd bounce between two. I'd start running one direction for like 10 meters and go, no, the other one's better. Start running that way for 10 meters again. No, the other way is better. And then run back the first way I went. 20 meters each way is not.
And is there like a certain type of leg or a certain length of leg that you think that it's more important for you to sort of double check?
Definitely longer legs. Obviously, you know that the further, like if you're 1 degree off at the start, the longer the leg, the longer you'll be away from when you get to the end. So obviously longer legs, you want to make sure you have the better route choice, and that's where stopping and making the best route choice when you start is a good choice, because 2 seconds at the start of the leg compared to 10 seconds at the end is a time saver. So definitely longer legs. I'm getting better at stopping and making the best route choice and then committing.
My route choice selection was purely based on, I saw that there was a lot of hill if I went down here. And,
a lot of extra climb.
I like to avoid hills at all costs.
Cool.
Yeah, and then the band was back together again.
Yeah, back together, and this is where all the collisions were, wasn't it?
Yeah. This is where Jensen almost hit the turf.
That was a very sketchy choice of that. Obviously, that's probably part of planning late notice. I reckon that they didn't pick up on that being an issue.
Yeah. Because I guess that was 16 to 17 for Zephyr, and he just saw a straight line.
Yeah, and
Vicky and I turned around and went back in.
Yeah.
Through. So yeah.
And a lot of the best teams were like, I don't know which way was the best route choice, but a lot of the best teams or a lot of good runners were still running this way, and it wasn't necessarily a mistake. I don't know if
I think what the
that
best
way's
route
quicker,
was
they were saying.
that little zag back up. I think it was the best route choice.
Like maybe best on paper, but then I still don't know if it's better on that than the actual day. Anyway, yeah, interesting. Yeah, cool. You guys didn't run into anyone?
No.
Did you finish together as well? Is that start to finish together?
3 seconds apart, I think.
Who won? Mickey.
Yeah. Just 3 seconds in it.
Yeah.
We were running with, like, it didn't feel like we were running with people, but then I looked back and we were actually running with we were in front of both the Great Britain teams, both the New Zealand teams. We were doing well.
We were quite the team, yeah.
This is a lot of teams.
Yeah.
Now I've lost track of you. Oh, you're up here.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's Great Britain. They're still going that
Yeah,
way. Yeah, it's good.
Yeah.
What was he about midfield, is it, roughly?
Yeah, I think so.
Long course. Spread it out a lot.
It
It
was
didn't spread out that much, given
well-
out how long it was.
Yeah, it was
Having
very long.
the spectator run through to purely just go back all the way down
Yeah.
into the town was
Yeah.
That hurt.
really,
Yeah, I thought that was pretty
Yeah.
rough.
yeah. But yeah, the spectator run through was hard work.
Yeah.
So like, especially if you came up on that track and then you went back down on that track.
Yeah.
So, but
Cool.
we did it. It felt like a couple hundred meters too long,
Yeah.
but
by
Yeah.
the end
it was so hot. It was
Yeah.
so hot.
Geez, I'd be
Yeah.
wanting some of that at the moment, to be honest. It's just all perspective, isn't it? I'm like, I wish I was in the heat, and as soon as I was there, I'd be like, nope, I don't want that.
That was very, very narrow.
Hey, Tash, what were you saying?
Oh, hi. I was just saying. So I think we've got quite bad internet connection, but that little track that the girls are talking about on the long route choice, the little track through the green.
Oh, yeah, this one.
No, the on the route choice one that you were talking about earlier. 7 to 8.
Oh, yeah, the other one,
little,
yeah.
The little,
Yeah.
That running that in the coaches race after, that was tiny, so narrow, and when you had two-way traffic, it was it was really a bit scary, and I think there were a couple of accidents where people got bumped into the the stone wall when they were running.
Maybe it
yeah.
seemed narrower than it was, Tash, after Shui.
Yeah.
What was in the what was this olive green area?
It was just a field, like
Yeah.
like an orchard.
Okay. Yeah.
There was
alright.
a stone wall with hip height either side, and it was very narrow. So having people running both ways, quite fun. But control placements like number 18, where Jensen had that,
Yeah.
specky crack, was I think just last minute planning, and and they just
It was all a bit tight there.
worried about putting it on to think about that. All they had to do was pull the control a couple of meters away from the corner, and it would have been fine.
Yeah, they probably should have put it on this side.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, exactly.
Anyway.
But it was still good. But it was hot. These guys did so well to get around that. It was so hot.
Yeah, definitely.
And, there wasn't a coming through the spectator. So, they did amazing.
Yeah, no, it was really good to watch. All right. Does anyone have any other questions either about this race or just generally for the girls? Feel free to shout them out now. Or
Yeah,
you can
I have.
type them.
Surprise,
Go for it,
surprise.
Mary. You're my favorite question master.
Yeah, I've taken up a lot of airspace today, haven't I?
Yeah.
Yeah. So what I just had a question. Maybe you didn't even think about this, but like, what did you? Maybe you did, maybe you didn't. What did you think about the fact that everyone had already run on the map? Because that has been like a really contentious thing over the past couple of years, like particularly with sprint, all of the geeking that people are doing and the ability to produce maps. And like, it was really interesting in Denmark that they made a lot of the kind of mapping data available by the website to try and make it as fair as possible for everyone. So obviously this is becoming more and more of a contentious issue in elite orienteering. So did you have any thoughts about whether it was fair that all the teams had an opportunity to run on that map already? Or, I mean, obviously this is an exception because it was a last minute thrown together race, but it's just interesting to hear.
Yeah, I think it felt better for us because we're like, we've run on it before. So like, at least we've done it. And I think if we hadn't run on it before, it would have it would have felt really a bit unfair. Like particularly those bits at the end were our first couple controls in the in our sim sprint. So this is where we had our sim sprint. But they opened up areas that they didn't have before. Like the first two controls were in like an old people's home, and when we were running like through the middle of the old people's home, there were like people on the edges like cheering us on. It was really cute. But I think I didn't really think about it that people had run on it before. I kind of was just like, well, we've got to beat the New Zealanders anyway, so they're our competition, and they're running it at the same time as us. So,
did you hear of many teams that hadn't had an opportunity to run on it, or like hadn't chosen to, or had pretty much everyone?
I hadn't heard of anyone that hadn't run on it, but there well could have been.
The Finns hadn't, surprisingly.
The Finns?
Yeah, that is interesting, I guess, because like definitely if that was WOC, there's no way you'd be able to use that race if the Finns hadn't run on it and everyone else had.
And I guess that's why
I was chatting with one of the Finnish guys and he said he hadn't run on it, but
yeah, and I guess that's why they made it unofficial, because they couldn't make it fair, but still wanted to give us a race. And I feel like that's what it came down to. It was either have 2 official races and go home, or have 3. And I think everyone was on the same consensus that we'd prefer to have another race and we'd just run.
It still felt official. It felt like JWOC. It felt with all of the GPS and the arena, the production.
And did you feel more confident running on that race because you had already been on the map? Like, did that make a really big difference to your ability to run that race?
I think so. Like for me, like particularly at the end, I was kind of not thinking, just running, and maybe I didn't make the best route choice even, so it might not have even like helped me specifically. But at the end, where I was like, oh, I know this place, I know it. It did make me feel a bit more confident, and I definitely wasn't as nervous for this race as for any of the other ones. And yeah, I think, and I've run first leg and I never ever run first leg. It was a different experience, and I think that's what Tash and Warren tried to do. They tried to put us in legs that we didn't really do, because it was kind of unofficial and it was an opportunity for us to go and do different things that we wouldn't usually do.
So it sounds like it's probably worth like Australia as a squad trying to like think about how we can really simulate what you might be doing in a race to try and take away some of those nerves before the race. But I'm sure there was a lot more to it as well, like knowing that it was unofficial and it was the last race of the week, and you know, other stuff that probably made you feel more relaxed as well. So are any of you, or do you know anyone who's going to come back for the forest races at the end of the year?
I would love to, but I'm still figuring out if I can.
Yeah, they've put it right on like when our exams are for uni, and again, it is a lot of money to be able to come back over here for a couple of days. And it'll probably be like really cold or something, so they'll probably cancel it. But yeah, I feel like it would be an amazing opportunity, because the maps here on the like small amount of time that we did get to run on the bush maps, they were so cool. And
they were really awesome.
Yeah, I think we had so much fun. But but it depends.
I think there are also some of the closer terrain that Europe has to offer to what Australia has as well.
Yeah, Warren kept saying, oh, we could be in Stanthorpe right now, and then we'd go somewhere else and this is exactly like South Australia. So he was making the connections left, right and centre. So
so I think everyone in the team would love to come back, but it's just a matter of, I don't think we can quite swing it with uni and school and
money, and everyone has a different reason that might stop them from going. So I guess we'll see.
Just on that, how were how different was the terrain from, say, a Stanthorpe or something like that? Like, was it the same, or was it actually, like, I know the maps look similar, but did it have a different feel, or was it really actually just really similar?
It was
quite similar. Yeah. One of the biggest differences was the green. You just could not get through any green from like kind of the middle shades to the darkest shades. Even light green was a struggle, whereas in Australia, like, you just have to get through green sometimes. So you had to like make route choices to avoid the green, which was different than Australia. But the actual like bare rock slabs and rocks and stuff felt quite similar.
Brodie, I think it was quite like just the new map in Victoria is at Mount Egbert, Egmont, saying just north of Bendigo. It had that sort of feel. Yeah, so probably a good area to come and train on for anyone that's sort of closer to this part of the world rather than Stanthorpe.
Yeah, and anyone that is planning on going, that would be the other thing. I guess none of it. I was going to ask how you would prepare. It's a unique opportunity, I think, for an Australian at JWOC to have visited the terrain so far out from the competition. If someone does go, not saying that any pressure on anyone to go, but yeah, it's quite unique in that way. I know we were trying to do that for Portugal in 2020 when it was supposed to be 21. Me and Dante, I think, were gonna go and get into the terrain, but yeah, it's interesting that it could actually happen this year.
Yeah, absolutely right, Brodie. It actually, that feeling of having been there, and sorry, there's a tractor about to go past out the front door. That feeling that we've actually been there and done some training. This is what other countries. Oh God, that's so loud. This is what other countries must feel like, you know, when they've been there, they've done a week of training before the actual JWOC week itself. So if people could go back, I think it would be a really great opportunity. And the terrain really did feel like it was familiar to us, which is also unusual. So
I bumbled around a training camp there in early 2020 in a similar area, and it reminded me a lot of Kiura, actually, some of the maps. Just like a lot of that sparse rocky stuff between loads of green shit.
Yeah. And probably
super cool too.
Worth considering for future years. I know this year, obviously, there's so many events on in Europe, and it's hard to plan for next year. And we're all sort of getting back over there for the first time, but maybe in future years, the JWOC people who are over there that are going to be eligible the next year, maybe being proactive and getting into that terrain might be. Yeah, Mikaela's going to be a couple of years. Maybe it's something you think about next year, Mikaela, and others into the future. I think, I'm not sure anyone's ever done it for JWOC that well, but I think it's happened a few times, and one of them probably would have been Aston, I imagine. I think may have got into the Danish terrain before the year, but so it can be useful, obviously. Cool. Any other questions from anyone before we let these guys go and enjoy their European holiday?
No, but sorry we were late joining, and we've got really bad internet connection. But yeah, thanks very much, Brodie, for doing this, and thanks to the girls for jumping on and sharing your experience. It was a fun week, even with the unfortunate bushfires. So I think you guys managed, very well to just keep pushing on through that disappointment.
Awesome. Yeah, thank you, Tash and Warren for being there to help them through it. I'm sure there's I'm sure you did a lot of work in that week and were really helpful in making sure they all had a very good week in the end, all things considered. So yeah, thanks again. I'll repeat what Tash said coming along. That's great. I think this is really useful for anyone who's wanting to go to JWOC in future years to have a listen. I know it's not our standard JWOC, but just some of the experiences and some of the takeaways you guys had, I think, are really useful. So we'll upload it. So if anyone misses it, they can see it. So if you're talking to anyone and they want to listen to it, it should be up on the YouTube account in a couple of days. But thank you to Mikaela, and Julia.
Brody.
Thanks, Brody.